Kwame's fishing nets hung heavy with the day's catch as he dragged them onto the riverbank. Silver scales glinted in the fading light, each fish representing another coin in his growing wealth. At 32, he had become the most successful fisherman along the Volta River, his wooden boat larger than any other, his house the finest in 3 villages combined. But wealth, he had learned, attracted vultures disguised as doves. "Brother, you cannot marry a woman you barely know." Alma's voice cut through his thoughts as she approached from the cassava fields, her wrapper stained with red soil. At 24, his younger sister possessed their late mother's sharp intuition and their father's stubborn pride. 3 months of courtship means nothing. She could be after your money. Kwame coiled his rope with practiced hands, avoiding her gaze. Efua is different. You saw how she spoke to the elders, how she laughed at my stories. Her father is a respected palm wine tapper. She doesn't need my wealth. Then why does she smile too perfectly? Why does every word from her mouth sound rehearsed? Alma crouched beside him, her fingers tracing patterns in the sand. I've watched her, Kwame. When she thinks no one is looking, her eyes calculate like an abacus. The accusation stung because it echoed his own midnight doubts. Efua was beautiful, skin like polished mahogany, eyes that held secrets deeper than the river. But beauty had fooled better men than him. His friend Kofi had married a stunning woman who disappeared with his life savings 6 months later. His cousin Ya's wife had borne another man's child while Ya worked the cocoa farms from dawn to dusk. What do you suggest? Kwame finally asked, though he dreaded the answer forming behind his sister's determined expression. Alma stood, brushing sand from her wrapper. Test her. Before you pay the bride price, before the families gather, before it's too late to walk away without shame. Test her how? Let me work in her compound, disguised as a farm laborer seeking employment. If she's truly kind, truly humble, she'll treat a poor worker with dignity. If she's pretending, if she's only sweet to you because of your money. Alma let the sentence hang between them like a fishing net waiting to be filled. Kwame's stomach churned. The deception felt wrong, like using weighted stones on fishing scales. Yet the thought of marrying a woman who would mistreat servants, who would reveal cruelty once the wedding drums faded, that terrified him more. 1 week, he said quietly. You work for her family for 1 week. I'll tell Efua I'm traveling upriver to buy new nets. You'll observe her, and then we'll know the truth. Alma's smile didn't reach her eyes. 1 week to see who she really is. Neither of them could have imagined the truth they would actually uncover. 3 days later, Alma stood at the entrance to Efua's family compound wearing her oldest cloth, her hair wrapped in faded fabric. She'd rubbed her skin with palm oil mixed with dust to look weathered from sun and labor. Her calloused hands, genuine from years of farm work, completed the disguise. Efua's mother, a plump woman with suspicious eyes, looked her up and down. You say you're from the northern villages? Yes, Ma. My crops failed. I need work to send money home to my children. The lie tasted bitter, but Alma held her gaze steady. Can you weed cassava? Fetch water? Grind pepper without complaining? Yes, Ma. I'm strong. I work hard. The woman grunted. My daughter is getting married soon. We need extra hands preparing the farm, cooking, cleaning. You'll sleep in the storage hut. Food twice daily. Payment at week's end. As Alma settled into the compound's rhythm, she noticed Efua immediately. The young woman moved through the space like water flowing around rocks, graceful, purposeful, aware of everything. When Alma stumbled carrying a heavy water pot, it was Efua who rushed to help, not her mother. Careful, Auntie. This path is treacherous when wet. Efua's hand steadied the pot, her smile genuine. What's your name? Ajoa, Ma. Alma used the day name for Monday births, common enough to be forgettable. Don't call me Ma. I'm not so important. Efua laughed, and something in that sound tugged at Alma's memory, a melody from childhood, half remembered. Call me Efua. Come, let me show you which pots leak. My mother never fixes anything until it's completely broken. Over the next 2 days, Alma watched Efua with growing confusion. The woman shared her own meals with the workers when her mother wasn't looking. She taught Alma a faster way to grind pepper that saved her aching arms. When another servant, an elderly man, fell ill, Efua personally brought him her father's strongest palm wine mixed with herbs. This wasn't the performance of a gold digger. This was genuine kindness, the type their mother had modeled, treating every person as deserving of dignity regardless of their station. Alma should have felt relief. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Something unsettling. On the third evening, as they sat shelling groundnuts under the mango tree, Efua spoke softly. "You remind me of someone." Alma's hand stilled. "Who, Ma? I mean Efua?" "A memory. From long ago." Efua's eyes held a faraway look. "I had a sister once. Older than me by 8 years. I barely remember her face, but I remember her hands. Strong hands like yours. Hands that could gut fish faster than anyone in the village." The groundnut shell cracked between Alma's trembling fingers. What happened to her?" "Raiders came from upriver. I was only 4 years old. They burned our fishing village, took children to sell in distant markets. My sister tried to protect me, but they clubbed her into the river. Everyone said she drowned. My parents, my real parents, died in the fire. The family that raised me found me hiding in a broken canoe 3 days later, half dead from sun and thirst." Alma's world tilted. The mango tree, the compound, Efua's face. Everything blurred. 20 years ago. A fishing village. Raiders. She had been 12, gutting fish with her mother, while baby Efua played in the shallows. She remembered the smoke, the screaming, diving into the river with Efua in her arms. She remembered the club striking her head, the darkness, waking up on a different shore miles downstream, alone. She'd searched for weeks, months, until her father found her half-mad with grief and brought her home to start forgetting. But the baby sister she'd failed to protect hadn't drowned. She'd survived. She'd become Efua. And now Efua was about to marry Kwame, their brother. "Are you alright, Ajoa? You look ill." Efua's hand touched her shoulder, and Alma flinched as if burned. I need to rest. The heat." Alma stumbled to her feet, mumbling excuses, fleeing to the storage hut before the tears came. She pressed her fist against her mouth to muffle the sobs. How was this possible? How could fate be so cruel, so twisted? Efua didn't know. She'd been too young to remember faces, only impressions, fragments. She didn't know the fisherman courting her was her blood brother. She didn't know the laborer sleeping in the storage hut was the sister who'd failed to save her. And the most devastating realization of all crashed over Alma like a wave. Efua had orchestrated everything. The courtship, the kindness to workers, all of it. Somewhere in her fragmented memories or through village gossip, Efua must have recognized Kwame. Must have known. This wasn't coincidence. This was a desperate woman's plan to reunite with her lost family, no matter the cost. But at what cost? If Kwame married her, if they consummated the marriage before the truth emerged, Alma pressed her palms against her eyes. She had come to test a woman's character. Instead, she'd uncovered a tragedy that would destroy everyone involved. Tomorrow, she would have to decide, reveal the truth and shatter her brother's heart, or stay silent and watch an unwitting abomination unfold. The storage hut suddenly felt like a tomb. Sleep refused to come. Alma lay on the woven mat, staring at the thatched roof, while mosquitoes hummed their endless song. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Efua's face, not as it was now, but as it had been 20 years ago. A toddler with round cheeks and curious eyes, laughing as Alma taught her to splash water at the river's edge. Fish, Alma. Big fish. Little Efua had squealed, pointing at shadows beneath the surface. Not fish, little palm nut. Those are just reflections. Real fish hide where the water runs deep. The memory felt like swallowing broken glass. Before dawn, Alma slipped out of the compound. She needed to think, to breathe, to escape the suffocating weight of secrets. The path to the river felt familiar beneath her feet, muscle memory from another life, Another village that existed now only in ashes and nightmares. The volta stretched wide and dark, its surface barely distinguishable from the sky in the pre-dawn gloom. Amma sat on a fallen tree trunk, watching the water that had stolen and returned so much. I thought I might find you here. Amma spun around. Efua stood on the path, wrapped in a simple cloth, her feet bare. In the half-light, she looked ethereal, like an ancestor returned to deliver judgment. You couldn't sleep either? Efua's voice held no accusation, only a bone-deep weariness that Amma recognized in her own soul. The hut is unfamiliar. Amma managed her throat tight. Efua sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. A fish broke the water's surface somewhere in the darkness. A brief splash, then silence. I know who you are, Efua said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Amma's breath stopped. You have our mother's eyes. I see them every time I look in water that's still enough to show reflections. Efua's hands twisted in her lap. And your scar, the one on your left forearm, shaped like a hook. I remember that scar. I used to trace it with my fingers when you carried me. Amma touched the old fishing injury instinctively. How long have you known? I recognized Kwame 3 months ago at the market. He has our father's laugh, the way it starts deep in the belly before it reaches the mouth. I followed him, learned his name, asked questions in the neighboring villages. Efua's voice cracked. When I discovered he had a sister named Amma who worked his cassava farm, a sister the right age, I knew. The ancestors had given me a path back to my blood. So you seduced him. The accusation came out harsher than Amma intended. I let him court me, Efua corrected, her chin lifting. I didn't deceive him about who I am. I am the woman he met at the market who laughed at his fish stories. I am the woman who shares his love of river songs and sunrise. Those things are real, Amma. My feelings for him are real. He's your brother. The words exploded from Amma's chest. You can't marry your own brother. It's forbidden. It's an abomination. It will curse. I know. Efua's calm shattered, tears streaming down her face. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I haven't torn myself apart every night, lying awake knowing that the man I've grown to care for, the man who makes me feel safe for the first time since the raiders destroyed everything, do you think I don't know I can never have him? The anguish in her voice mirrored the storm in Amma's own heart. They sat in the wreckage of impossible choices, two sisters separated by violence and reunited by deception. Then why? Amma whispered. Why continue this? Why let it get this far? Efua wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Because I was alone, Amma. For 20 years I was alone. The family that raised me was kind, but distant. I was always the rescued child, the charity case, the girl who didn't quite belong. When I saw Kwame, when I heard that laugh, I just wanted to be close to family again. Even if I could never tell him the truth. Even if I had to live with the pain of loving someone I couldn't have. You were going to marry him. The statement demanded explanation. No. Efua shook her head fiercely. I would have stopped it. 1 week before the ceremony, I would have disappeared. Left a note saying I'd changed my mind, that I'd fallen for someone else. Kwame would have been hurt, but he would have survived. You both would have survived. And you. I would have had 3 months of belonging. 3 months of family dinners and shared stories and feeling like I had a home. That would have been enough. Efua's laugh was bitter. I'm a fool, aren't I? A desperate fool trying to steal scraps of love that were never meant for me. Amma's anger drained away, replaced by a grief so profound it felt like drowning. She reached for Efua's hand, their fingers intertwining like they must have done 2 decades ago. You're not a fool. You're my sister. You're the baby I thought I'd killed through my failure to protect you. You were 12 years old facing armed raiders. You saved my life by getting me into that canoe. Efua squeezed her hand. I've never blamed you, Amma. Not once. They sat together as the sun began its climb, painting the river gold and amber. 2 sisters bound by blood and separated by fate, finally reunited at the worst possible moment. What do we do now? Amma finally asked. Efua stared at the water, her expression hardening with resolve. We tell Kwame the truth. All of it. He deserves to know he has two sisters, even if it means destroying whatever future we might have had. He'll be devastated. He loves you. Then he'll hate me instead, and that's a pain I've earned. Efua stood, pulling Amma up with her. But first, I need to know, did he send you to spy on me? Was this whole labor disguise his idea? Shame burned through Amma's chest. Yes. He wanted to test your character before committing to marriage. I argued against it, but I also doubted you. I thought you might be a gold digger. Efua's laugh held no humor. So we've both been playing roles. Both deceiving. Maybe we're more alike than either of us realized. What will you tell him about why you agreed to the courtship? He'll want to understand. The truth. Efua's jaw set with determination. That I was lonely and desperate and made terrible choices trying to reclaim something I lost. That I let my need for family override my judgment. That I'm sorry for the pain I've caused. And what about us? Amma's voice broke. Do we get to be sisters after this? Or does telling the truth mean losing you all over again? Efua pulled her into an embrace, and Amma felt the child she'd once carried in those arms, now grown, now strong, now breaking. I don't know, Efua whispered against her shoulder, but we face it together. No more secrets, no more tests, just the truth, however brutal. They walked back to the compound as the village began to wake. Cooking fires sent smoke signals into the morning sky. Children's laughter echoed from nearby huts. Life continued its ordinary rhythm, oblivious to the extraordinary reckoning about to unfold. When they reached Efua's family compound, Kwame stood at the entrance, his expression thunderous. I came back early, he said, his eyes moving between them. And I've just heard a very interesting story from a merchant who recognized my laborer sister visiting the compound where my bride-to-be lives. Would either of you like to explain what's happening here? Efua and Amma exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. Yes, they said in unison. But you'll want to sit down first. Kwame didn't sit. He stood rigid as a baobab tree while Efua's family compound emptied, her adopted mother shooing away curious servants, sensing the gravity of whatever storm was brewing. The three of them remained in the courtyard, Kwame with his arms crossed, Amma with her head bowed, and Efua standing straight as a spear, ready to accept whatever judgment came. Start talking. Kwame's voice could have cut fishing line. And don't insult me with more lies. Efua stepped forward. My real name isn't Efua. Or rather, it wasn't always Efua. The family that raised me gave me that name when they found me, but before the raiders came, before the fire and the blood and the river, my name was Akojua. I was your baby sister. The words landed like stones in still water. Kwame's face drained of color. That's not possible. Akojua died. The raiders. Amma saved me. Efua's voice strengthened. She put me in a canoe before they clubbed her into the water. The current carried me downstream. A fishing family from a different village found me days later, half dead. They raised me as their own. I had no memory of my real name, my real family, only fragments. Dreams of a sister with a hooked scar on her arm, a father with a laugh like thunder, a mother who sang while gutting fish. Kwame turned to Amma, his eyes demanding confirmation. It's true. Amma's voice barely rose above a whisper. I woke up on the riverbank miles away with no memory of how I got there. I searched for her for months, brother. I thought she'd drowned. I thought I'd killed our baby sister. So you... Kwame's hand gestured wildly between them, his mind clearly racing. You've been courting your sister? For 3 months. I've been planning to marry my own blood. The horror in his voice made Efua flinch, but she held her ground. You didn't know. I knew. I recognized you at the market, and instead of revealing myself, I let you court me. I told myself I just wanted to be close to family again, to feel like I belonged somewhere. But the truth is darker than that. What truth? Kwame's hands clenched into fists. What could possibly be darker than deceiving your own brother into almost committing an abomination? That I fell in love with you anyway. Efua's confession hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. I knew it was wrong. I knew we could never be together. But somewhere between your fish stories and your kindness and the way you made me laugh, I stopped thinking of you as the brother I never knew and started thinking of you as simply
Kwame.
the man who saw me, the man who made me feel safe. Kwame staggered backward as if she'd struck him. Stop. Just stop talking. I was going to end it. Efua continued, tears streaming freely now. 1 week before the wedding, I would have disappeared. You would have been hurt, but you would have healed. I never intended for it to go this far. Then why did it? Kwame's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell me the moment you recognized me? Why drag us all through this nightmare? Because I'm selfish. Efua's composure shattered. Because I spent 20 years feeling like a ghost in someone else's life, and when I finally found my real family, I couldn't let go. Because I'm damaged and desperate, and I made terrible choices trying to fill a hole that will never be filled. And you. Kwame turned his rage on Alma. You knew? When did you know? 3 days ago, Alma admitted. When Efua told me about her past. I recognized the story, the timing. I saw the scar I gave her when she was a baby, a small burn on her ankle from cooking fire embers. I failed to protect her then, and I've failed again now. Kwame laughed, but the sound held no joy. So my sister came to test my bride's character, only to discover my bride is also my sister. The ancestors must be laughing at our expense. Brother. Alma reached for him. Don't. He jerked away. Don't call me brother right now. I can't think. He strode toward the compound entrance, then stopped his back to them. I need time. I need to understand what's real and what was performance. Did either of you ever tell me the truth about anything? The love is real, Alma said softly. My love for you as a brother. Efua's love for you as family. That was never false. Family. Kwame's shoulders shook. What kind of family builds itself on deception? What kind of love starts with lies? Efua walked toward him, stopping just beyond arm's reach. The desperate kind. The broken kind. The kind that's been shattered by violence and scattered by rivers, and is trying to piece itself back together with whatever fragments remain. I don't expect forgiveness, Kwame. I don't even expect understanding. But know this, every moment I spent with you, every laugh we shared, every story I told about my hopes and dreams, that was real. The only lie was my silence about who I was. Kwame finally turned, and Alma saw their father's face in his features, the same stubborn jaw, the same eyes that could carry both fury and tenderness. And the feelings you claim to have for me? The love you say you fell into? Wrong, Efua said firmly. Impossible. Forbidden. But real. I will carry that shame to my grave, but I won't compound it with more lies. Yes, Kwame. I fell in love with my brother. And that makes me monstrous.
No.
The new voice came from the compound entrance. Efua's adopted mother stood there, her face creased with lines of hard-won wisdom. That makes you human. Broken, perhaps. Misguided, certainly. But human. Mama. Efua started. The older woman raised her hand. I've been listening. Forgive an old woman's curiosity, but I needed to hear the full story. She moved into the courtyard, her gaze sweeping across all three of them. I've raised you for 20 years, a Kojua who became Efua. I've watched you carry a sadness no child should know. I've seen you wake from nightmares about fire and water and hands letting go. I knew someday your past would find you. You knew. Efua's voice broke. I suspected. A child doesn't survive what you survived without scars deeper than skin. The woman's eyes softened. But I never imagined it would hurt this much when the truth finally arrived. Kwame's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by a weariness that aged him 10 years. What do we do now? How do we fix this? Some things can't be fixed, Efua's adopted mother said. But they can be forgiven. They can be learned from. They can be transformed into something better, than what broke them in the first place. You're saying we should just forget this happened? Alma asked incredulously.
No.
I'm saying you should remember it differently. Not as a betrayal, but as a reunion. Not as a deception, but as a desperate girl's attempt to find her way home. Not as an ending, but as a beginning. Kwame sank onto a wooden stool, his head in his hands. I don't know how to be a brother to someone I was falling in love with. I don't know how to separate what I felt from what I should feel. Then don't. Efua knelt before him, her voice urgent. Don't try to erase what happened. Let it be complicated. Let it be painful. Let it be the messy, imperfect truth that it is. But don't let it destroy the fact that we're family. That we found each other against impossible odds. That we have a chance most people who lose siblings to violence never get, a chance to know each other again. As siblings. Kwame's statement demanded agreement. As siblings, Efua confirmed. I'll leave this village. I'll go somewhere far enough away that we won't see each other except at festivals and family gatherings. I'll give you space to heal from what I put you through. But please, Kwame, please don't ask me to disappear from your life entirely. I've already lost you once. Alma moved to stand beside them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. We all made mistakes. I convinced you to test someone's character through deception. You agreed to it. Efua orchestrated a courtship, knowing the truth. We're all complicit in this disaster. But we're also all victims of circumstances that started long before any of us made these choices. The raiders, Kwame said quietly. They're the ones who broke our family. And we're the ones who can choose how to rebuild it, Efua's adopted mother added. Not as it was, that's impossible, but as something new, something honest, even if that honesty is painful. The sun had climbed higher now, burning away the morning mist. In the harsh light of day, the three siblings looked at each other without illusions, without pretense, without the masks they'd worn for protection. I need conditions, Kwame finally said. If we're going to try this, and I'm not promising anything, but if we try, then no more secrets. No more tests. No more performances. Whatever we build, it has to be on truth. Agreed, Alma and Efua said simultaneously. And Efua. Kwame's voice caught. You need to help me understand how to stop seeing you as someone I was courting and start seeing you as my sister. Because right now, my heart and my mind are at war, and I don't know which side will win. Time, Efua said. And distance. And probably pain. But we face it together, or not at all. Kwame stood, looking between his two sisters. One he'd known his whole life, one he'd just discovered. Then we face it together. But on one condition, we tell the whole village the truth. No more stories about Efua changing her mind or me calling off the wedding. We tell them what happened, and we let them judge us as they will. We've had enough secrets. The thought of public shame made Efua pale, but she nodded. Whatever is necessary to make this right. It won't make it right, Kwame's adopted mother interjected gently. But it might make it honest. And sometimes, that's the best we can hope for. The village gathered under the ancient baobab tree where disputes were settled and justice dispensed. Word had spread quickly. Kwame the prosperous fisherman had called an assembly regarding his failed wedding. Speculation buzzed like swarming bees. Had the bride price negotiations collapsed? Had Efua been discovered with another man? Had Kwame's sister objected to the match? The truth, Alma thought as she stood beside Kwame and Efua, was so much stranger than anything their gossip could conjure. The village chief, a wizened man named Togby who'd presided over disputes for 40 years, raised his hand for silence. Kwame, son of Mensa, you have called this assembly. Speak your truth. Kwame stepped forward, his voice steady despite the tremor Alma could see in his hands. Honored chief, elders, people of this village, and the neighboring villages who have gathered, I come before you to confess a terrible mistake and to share a truth that will sound like madness. The crowd leaned in, hungry for scandal. 3 weeks ago, I asked my sister Alma to disguise herself as a farm laborer and work in my bride-to-be's compound. I wanted to test Efua's character, to see if she would treat a poor worker with the kindness she showed to me. I know now this was wrong. That trust cannot be built on deception. That testing someone's character through trickery is itself a failure of character. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some nodded in understanding. Others frowned at the admission. But what Amma discovered was not what either of us expected. Kwame gestured for Efua to join him. She moved like a woman walking to her execution, her head high despite the terror Amma could read in her eyes. Efua is not who we thought she was, Kwame continued. Her adopted family found her 20 years ago after raiders destroyed her fishing village upriver. She was 4 years old, traumatized, with only fragments of memory about her past. The crowd's energy shifted, confusion replacing judgment. That destroyed village was my village. Our village. The raiders who killed our parents and scattered our family also took Efua, though we knew her then as a Kojua, my baby sister, who I thought had drowned in the Volta 20 years ago. Gasps erupted. Women covered their mouths. Men exchanged shocked glances. Efua's voice joined Kwame's, surprisingly strong. I recognized my brother 3 months ago at the market. I should have revealed myself immediately. Instead, I let him court me. I told myself I just wanted to be close to family again, to feel like I belonged. But my selfishness, my desperation, almost led us into an abomination. I almost married my own brother. The assembly exploded into chaos. Voices overlapped, some condemning, some questioning, some weeping at the tragedy of it all. Togby's staff struck the ground 3 times, demanding order. Silence. Let them finish. Amma stepped forward now, completing the trinity of confession. I am complicit in all of this. I agreed to deceive Efua, never imagining she was the sister I thought I'd killed trying to protect her from raiders. When I discovered the truth, I kept silent for days, wrestling with what to reveal and when. We have all failed each other and failed the standards of honesty this community holds sacred. The chief studied them for a long moment, his ancient eyes seeming to look through flesh to bone. You come before us confessing wrongs, seeking what? Forgiveness? Permission? Absolution. Understanding, Kwame said quietly. And, perhaps guidance. We're trying to rebuild a family that was destroyed by violence and nearly destroyed again by our own mistakes. We don't know how to do that while honoring both our blood bonds and the trust we've broken. An elder named Edzoa stood, her gray hair wrapped in indigo cloth. I remember the raiders. I remember the fishing villages they burned. I lost a grandson in those attacks, a boy of 16 who tried to fight them with nothing but a gutting knife. He died a hero's death, but he died nonetheless. She approached the 3 siblings, her face a map of sorrow and survival. What the raiders did to you was evil. What you did to each other was foolish. But foolishness born from trauma, from loss, from a desperate hunger to reclaim what was stolen, this is not the same as malice. This is not the same as cruelty. Another voice rose from the crowd. A young man Amma recognized as a fellow fisherman. But they almost committed an abomination. If they'd married, if they'd consummated the union before discovering the truth, the ancestors would have cursed this entire village. But they didn't. Togby's voice cut through the argument. They discovered the truth. They confessed publicly. They're seeking to make right what they made wrong. Is that not what we teach our children? That mistakes require confession and correction. A woman called out, "How can we trust them? They've admitted to lying, to testing, to deceiving. What's to stop them from doing it again?" Efua's adopted mother pushed through the crowd, her presence commanding respect. "I'll speak for Efua, for Kojua. I raised this child from near death to womanhood. I've watched her carry trauma that would have broken weaker spirits. When she discovered her blood family, she made desperate choices. Wrong choices. But her heart was never malicious. It was simply broken. And broken things sometimes cut when they try to piece themselves back together." Kwame's friend Kofi stood next. "I've known Kwame since we were boys catching minnows in the shallows. He's as honest as the river is long. If he's confessing to deception now, it's because he's learned its cost. We all make mistakes. The measure of a person is whether they learn from them." The assembly devolved into heated debate. Some argued for exile, that the siblings should be separated to prevent any future temptation. Others called for rituals of purification to cleanse the near abomination. A few voices, mostly elders who'd survived their own traumas, urged compassion and understanding. Through it all, Alma stood with her brother and sister, united in their vulnerability. Whatever judgment came, they would face it together. Finally, after what felt like hours, Togby struck his staff again. I have heard enough. This is my judgment, subject to the Council of Elders' approval. The attempted deception was wrong, but the reunion is blessed. The ancestors work in mysterious ways, and perhaps they brought you back together precisely so you could learn these painful lessons about trust and honesty. He pointed his staff at Kwame. You will make offerings to the ancestors for attempting to test another's character through deceit. You will spend one season working not for profit but for the village, teaching young fishermen your skills without payment. This will remind you that worth is not measured in wealth or what others can offer you. The staff swung to Alma. You will tend the graves of your parents and perform rituals asking their forgiveness for losing and then finding their daughter. You will also serve the village as I prescribe, helping to mediate disputes since you now understand deeply how secrets poison relationships. Finally, Togby faced Efua. You carry the heaviest burden, the knowledge that you allowed feelings to develop that should never have existed. You will leave this village for 2 years. Go to the Northern Territories, work with the healing women there. Learn about trauma, about how broken minds can distort even the purest intentions. When you return, you will teach others what you've learned, so that victims of violence might heal more completely than you did. And after 2 years? Efua's voice trembled. May I return to my family? If your brother and sister will have you, yes. But not as a bride. As a sister. As family. The lines between you must be redrawn in everyone's minds, including your own. Distance and time will help with that. Efua bowed her head, tears streaming. I accept your judgment, honored chief. And we accept your judgment, Kwame and Alma echoed. Togby's expression softened. The raiders took from you what can never be fully restored. But you have each other now. Don't waste this gift by clinging to what might have been. Embrace what is, a family reunited, scarred but surviving. That is its own kind of miracle. 2 days later, Alma stood at the riverbank watching Efua prepare for her journey north. The canoe was loaded with provisions, gifts from the village, and a small carved figure of the family's ancestral deity, a parting gift from Efua's adopted mother. 2 years is a long time, Alma said, her voice catching. Not as long as 20, Efua replied, checking her supplies one final time. And this time, I know where I'm coming home to. Kwame approached from the village path, carrying a fishing net, old but well made, their father's work from decades ago. I want you to have this. So you remember where you come from, who you come from. Efua took the net with trembling hands. I'll bring it back. I promise. I know you will. Kwame pulled her into an embrace, and Alma watched them hold each other. Not as almost lovers, but as siblings finding their way back to what they should have always been. When they separated, Efua turned to Alma. I need you to forgive yourself. For the raiders, for losing me, for all of it. You were a child trying to protect a baby. You did your best. So did you, Alma whispered. We all did our best with broken pieces. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Efua climbed into the canoe. Her movements practiced from the childhood, she'd spent relearning how to navigate rivers that both saved and scarred her. As she pushed off from shore, she called back, Tell me stories when I return. Stories about our parents, about the village before the raiders, about who I was before I became Efua. I want to know Akojua. We'll tell you everything, Kwame promised. No more secrets. They watched until the canoe disappeared around the river's bend. Alma felt Kwame's hand slip into hers, a brother's hand, familiar and strong. Do you think we'll ever fully heal from this? He asked. I don't know, Alma admitted. But I think we'll heal better together than we would apart, even if apart is sometimes necessary. They walked back to the village as the sun climbed higher, two siblings carrying the weight of a third who was finding her own way home. The river flowed on, indifferent to human drama, carrying away the old while bringing in the new. In the village, life continued. Fish were caught and sold. Crops were planted and harvested. Children learned the stories of ancestors and the lessons of community. And in quiet moments, when Kwame and Amma sat together repairing nets or preparing meals, they would speak of Efua, keeping her present in their lives even in her absence. The test that Kwame had designed to reveal character had revealed far more than he'd bargained for. It had uncovered a sister, destroyed a courtship, and forced all of them to confront the ways trauma shapes choices across decades. But it had also given them something precious: the truth. Painful, complicated, messy, but real. And in a world where raiders could steal children and rivers could separate families, where survival sometimes required forgetting and healing sometimes demanded remembering, the truth was the most valuable treasure they could claim. 2 years would pass. Efua would return, transformed by her work with healers and her own journey toward wholeness. Kwame would become not just a prosperous fisherman but a teacher and mentor. Amma would develop a reputation for wise counsel, helping others navigate the treacherous waters of family conflict. But that was tomorrow's story. Today, two siblings worked side by side, learning to be family again. Learning that love doesn't always follow the paths we design for it. Learning that the strongest bonds are often forged in the fires of our worst mistakes. The river flowed on, carrying their story toward whatever shores the ancestors had planned. And for the first time in 20 years, neither Amma nor Kwame faced those currents alone.